All right, this is video number 5 already on the white truck build. Today we're going to work on the firewall and then 2 different versions of the seat. So for the one version of the seat, I know I'm going to need one of these perforated strips and these little clips that go through. Use a pair of pliers to straighten them back out. I found out the hard way that the little angled edges of these are super sharp and they will hurt you. So don't try to tough guy it or tough lady it. Just use a pair of needle nose pliers and you can squeeze them flat and then take them apart. So let's start with the firewall. And this, what I have done here is I have 2 of the regular base plate. These are called 11 hole, and that has to do with the number of holes running across this edge of the base plate. So if you count, there's 11 holes running across. So that's an 11 hole regular base plate. So I have one of those. And then this bottom one is actually, I believe they call it a motor plate. And this one, I'm using this opening because that's where the steering column will run up through. So this is the side of the firewall that faces the front of the truck. And then I used 2 angle strips. So I have a 5 hole here and an 11 hole here. And I went with the screws through from what's going to be facing the seat, just so the screw heads were there so it would look a little nicer. And that's how I have it screwed with these at angles. Now, if you look at the instructions, you'll run the base plate, or you'll run these 11 hole strips along the side over here, straight up and down. And if you do that, it works, but it creates a gap in the firewall. So if I take a couple of these strips here and 2 of these regular base plates, and I'll just drop screws here down through so you can see what I'm talking about. Get it to the right holes here to line up. I'll go to the top one there, and then I can put another screw here. I'll just loosely put a nut on the back side of this. Now, when I line these up to get them to line up, so if I try to touch it together, it won't line up. I'd have to actually overlap them a little bit. So then I got to pull them back apart, and that creates a gap that's 3/16 of an inch in between these. So you can definitely do it that way. But I like it tight together. So that angling those base plates, I've seen that on several other white truck builds. So that's what I've been doing, and that works out really well. So seat build. So if we want to build the seat according to the Erector directions, we have to have an 11 hole regular base plate, and then we have to have 2 of the 5 hole. And the way this goes together is we use the end hole in this with the bend facing down, and then we're going to use the center hole in the 5 hole base plate. And with the big fingers, these inside ones are definitely more difficult. Now this, if you're doing it for your build this way, I would recommend these two bolts, running them through the opposite way of what I'm doing. I'm doing it this way because it's hard enough for me to start those bolts through the hole. If I put them through from the back side, it would be easier, but then getting the little nuts put on would not necessarily be easier. And this seat, I'm just showing you how to do it based on the instructions. There's two different versions that are shown in the instructions, so I'll show you both here. So that starts our seat, and then the next thing that we want to do to follow the directions is to take two of the 2.5-inch curved girders, and we're going to start by bolting these together through the center. And when we do that, we want to put one of these flats on it, and this is the 7-hole, and I'm going to put that top hole through there with that same bolt, and I'm going to get a nut put on there. I'm just going to do this finger tight because I want to be able to move this. So then what I do is I come back over, and now it's going to be a bolt going through the top hole on that side base plate. And I'm again putting this one on a model. I'd probably put it out toward the back. You know, it wouldn't be very comfortable if you think about a 1/10 scale Erector guy getting into his truck and having a bolt sticking out of the seat into his back. So, and I might have grabbed a bad nut here, or I might have a bad screw. It's kind of interesting with these little Erector nuts and bolts. Sometimes a nut will not go onto one screw and it goes perfectly fine onto another, and sometimes you'll get a bunch in a row that'll work with no problem. So it's always interesting to discover that. Try putting this one on backwards. See if that'll help. Nope. Come back to that one later. I guess what I should do is when I find those that don't want to go on, I should throw them into a separate peanut butter lid, and then I could run a tap down through them and clean the hole up. So if you look at the directions, then this center brace mounts through this center slot in the seat, and it looks to me like when you look at the directions, you use the top hole, and then you come down 2, 3, 4, 5. You use the 6th hole and not the 7th, but you know, you definitely could bring it up and do it into the 7th hole. It really won't make a huge difference. If somebody crawls into the floorboard of your truck and they look underneath the seat and they ask why there's a brace hanging down, you can tell them because. So now what I would do with this is go ahead and tighten everything up, and I'll snug this just a little. Now remember, this center, you're dealing with a slot side to side, so you got to kind of get it lined up in the center of that slot. And then this is helping with your spacing your spacing side to side here on the bottom. And then this would mount on your floorboard piece. This angle is sticking straight up. So you would use, I believe the instructions say to use one of these 5-hole angle pieces that come in the set. And with this, you've got a couple different options on how you would mount it. You could lay it flat and go through that first hole with your bolt. Or if you wanted to, you could angle it up and down like this, and then you could mount through either the top hole or the bottom. I would use the top. Now, you would do one of those on each side according to the directions, and that would allow you to mount this seat. Now, I was positive I was not going to use this seat on this build. I was going to use the other style that they show, and I had only looked at one that I have on a truck and then the instructions. But now that I see this together, I may actually use this seat instead of my other one, but I'll show you the other one. So that is the seat that we see built in the instructions. So on the top view of the chassis, so this is the second page in the instructions for the chassis. That's the seat right here. And this bottom plate, you would mount it as you build, but I just have it already mounted because I wanted it to help hold the chassis together. So that's really the only difference. The other thing that I believe is a good idea to do is to run a brace across the back. And if you use one of these flat perforated strips, and this one, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 21 holes. That is the perfect size to fit across there. And then if that's in place, you're not going to have a problem with your seat trying to tip back on you. This is going to hold across the frame. And if you want then too, you could also use, again, a couple of these. You could use some little angle brackets like this that come in the set. And probably can't see that very good in my fingers. But there are a bunch of these in each of the sets. And you can go through the hole that would line up with a hole in your chassis, and you can mount that for more stability to hold the back of the seat down. You could also do that same thing in the back using one of those 5-hole angle strips. So now that I'm causing myself second thoughts here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this brace strip across the back. I'll put these through from the opposite direction. And again, if you haven't seen this little tool, this is one of the wrenches. I believe these come in the later sets, after these wood box sets, but you just slide that nut down into the wrench, and it's got a little metal clip here that's just pressed out of the tool, and that allows you to hold it. And then screw it together. Now, I have found that if you tighten it completely down, you have a hard time pulling the wrench off. You'll get the wrench caught. So just go part way down and then slip that wrench off. And then you can go back to your actual Erector wrench, or I have these little Craftsman wrenches. I believe that these are from a Craftsman set that's made for working on automotive ignition systems. And we got to get this side that will actually fit on because of the way these are cut. One side usually does not want to fit on real well. And then tighten this other one. Now I'm getting both of these seats put together. Again, this is still all parts from this one 7.5 set. So now I can bring that up. Yeah, I'm really liking the way that looks as well. So I'll set that up here so I can keep an eye on it. And here is the other seat. So if we take a look at the instructions, and I'll flip here. So if we look at the dump truck, it has the seat with the 2.5-inch angled girders. Coming over here, both of these trucks, the trolley repair truck has it set up that way. The covered delivery truck is like that. But now if we get here to the trailer truck, it has a solid piece across the back. It has another one of the regular base plates that makes the back of the seat. So that's what I did on this one. And the only really major difference here is the bottom seat piece. Instead of putting that in with the angle in the base plate facing down, like I did on the other seat, now that goes in with the angle facing up. And to get the seat back then, you take a second base plate and you put it through, you put it like that. So now I have that angle facing up. This goes on in front. You could do it the other way around, but it just looks nicer if you do it this way. And then a bolt goes through here, and a bolt would then go into the center hole on the short 5-hole base plate. And that allows for the seat to be built like this. So there's the back. Where it's off here, that would get hid. I did run all of these bolts through from the front side. And then this one, I still want to do the same thing, and I want to put one of those 21-hole strips. And I got to find where I put my other 21-hole strips. But I will put a 21-hole strip across the back of this if I decide to use it. And then the front gets mounted exactly the same way. I'm going to end up probably doing eeny, meeny, miny, mo, because I like the way both of them look. So either way, I think it's good. But so that's a good problem to have, that either seat looks good. But from one set, you can build the dashboard. You can also build both of the seats. I've got the piece in place for the floor already, and I still have a couple of the regular base plates over here. Now these short base plates, the 5-hole, and again, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes here. Those I've used the 4 of them up that come in the set. So you'd pick out which seat you were going to use, and then if you build them both just to try it, you would just want to take the one apart to maybe use those base plates somewhere else. Now, I know the idea behind the Erector set is you build a model, you take it apart, you build another model, you take it apart, you build another one. These white trucks that I'm putting together, as of right now, my intent is to leave the trucks together. And I think probably on some of the other projects that I do, I'm going to end up taking sets where I've taken the parts out for the truck, and I'm going to build something else, but I might combine parts from sets together And again, I'm doing this with sets that maybe weren't entirely complete, or sets that I bought specifically for build sets. And then I do have a few sets that I bought just to display the set as a collector piece. And those I'm not robbing parts out of or taking parts out of those. Those will stay together as complete sets. So real quick here, back to the firewall. As I said, I built with the 2 flat plates, and then these 2 bolts going through. These are 3/4 inch screws going through. And then what I did is on the back side, and hopefully this will pick up on the video okay. I ran that bolt through the base plate and I put a nut on it. And I snugged the nut up, but I didn't make it completely tight, just so I could have a little bit of room to move it around. And then this floorboard piece is angled, and that is held in place. I've got another nut on the inside here on each of the bolts. And then right now I just have it sitting together like this, but I will put another nut on the back side. Now with these 2 nuts and with the 2 outer nuts here, you can't tighten them completely down. If you do, you'll lose your angle. It's going to pop that angle up. But once this is attached to the floorboard piece that's already in place, then you can snug these a little bit and you won't have to worry about it going anywhere. So this will set down on the front of the truck, or up against the back of the hood, I should say. And now the way I've got this, and it just took a little bit of fitting and adjusting on my nuts on the inside here, but I can go ahead and put bolts through, and they will go through these holes that are angled a little bit. And then that takes care of the gap between the hood and the firewall, so that it's tight up against that right now. Once you've got these 2 bolts with nuts on the back side and you screw those down, don't screw these down super tight. If you do, you will bend the edge of this base plate that you have in there at an angle. So snug them up, but don't go crazy with tightening them down. And then once you tighten these down, you can go back and snug up the nuts that you would put underneath on those bolts that are holding your firewall to that floorboard piece. And then that's going to give you enough sturdiness here. Even once you start using the steering wheel and you've got the steering column mounted through, that's going to work. Now, I am not going to tighten this down yet. And the reason for that is I still need to get my strips going across, one strip going across in this opening, and then angled pieces going at an angle. And I showed this in the last video. There'll be 2 pieces angled like that, and one going across, and that creates an opening here to hold the steering column. So that part I still have to do. So the next step will be putting the front suspension together. I'm sorry, the front axle parts together. And then I'll go ahead and get the steering column put through, and then I can put those pieces where they need to be, get everything lined up so that the steering works. One other thing that I discovered as I was building this truck, and I hadn't noticed this before, but the holes in the front axle, they line up top to bottom, but they are not centered in the axle. So I've got another axle here. I went and I checked, and I have a half a dozen or so of these axles, and hopefully you'll be able to see this in the video, but the holes in all of them that I looked at are off center. So right now, the way I've got the axle mounted on the truck, I've got the narrower gap here to the front of the truck. And it wouldn't give you very much, but if I were to take that axle off and flip it around, then I would have the narrower gap to the back of the axle, and it would move the axle back about 1/8 of an inch, not quite. So it would move the tires back about 1/8 of an inch in the opening. So, that is something to be aware of. If you are looking at it and you're thinking, oh, the gap's a little too big, you could try flipping the axle around. This part is it's the same front to back or side, I guess, side to side. So it doesn't matter that way, which way you have it. But just something that I had never noticed that in the time I've been working on these, and just picked up on that as I was working on the truck within the last couple of days. So something to think about. Everything in these pieces for the front axle, this is all in all the parts that I have. These holes are drilled centered. It's just those axles that are not centered in the axle. So it would create some spacing there. So like I said, next step, I'm going to pop my firewall and the floorboard off. I'll get everything put together for the front end in the next video, run the steering column up, make sure that's working side to side, and then this can be put back into place, and I'll start figuring out what strips I need to use and how I can mount that to create that spot to hold the steering column. So thanks a lot for watching video 5. And when I come back with video 6, that'll be getting the front end put together and the steering column done. And then I think after that's wrapped up, things are going to move pretty quick here. Thanks for watching.